Hello everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's lecture. So today we are going to discuss about internal audit, management audit and operational audit. In this lecture, we will be again focusing more on the practical side of these topics rather than going into more into theory mode. We will be practicing more questions and we will be understanding the basic concepts and very important concepts of these particular three types of audit by solving certain questions. Okay. But for that, I need participation from you. I need your participation and maximum participation from your side, guys. Okay. Hope you have gone through the study material in my previous lectures. And based on that, let's start. Good morning, Amrita. Good morning, Sumit. Good morning, Viraj. Okay. So the first question for today, like for the day is, ABC Private Limited had the following figures for the financial year ending on 31st March 2022 and 31st March 2023. So loans as on 31st March 2023 from Bank A were 25 CR, Bank B was 40 CR, paid up share capital on 23, 55 CR, paid up share capital on 31st March 22, 45 CR, your turnover for 31st March 23, 186 CR and turnover for 31st March 22, 177 CR. Okay. Now, kindly guide ABC Limited with respect to the requirement of a class of companies that are required to appoint an internal auditor as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013. So you need to guide ABC Limited, ABC Private Limited with respect to the requirement of appointing internal auditor as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013. Do you think the company is required or mandatorily required to appoint internal auditor? Come on, guys. Whether the company is required or whether the company falls under the class of companies who are required to appoint internal auditor as per the provisions of Companies Act. What provisions of Companies Act talk about? Like about which class of companies? Whether ABC Private Limited falls under that purview or not. Come on, guys. So ABC Private Limited. Okay. For them, these are the figures for March 2023 and March 2022. You have a turnover, you have a paid up share capital, both. Okay, Sumit. Good, Janvi. Come on, guys. You need to think of the provisions and apply the provision. Pretty simple, straightforward. There is nothing different here. Think of the provision. What are the requirements of provision? And just try to apply the provision here directly. There is no catch. Trust me. Correct, Sumit. Very good. Quickly, guys. So basically, we need to think of the provision. I'll just guide you with the provision that you need to apply. That is section 138. Okay. Section 138 and relevant rules there too. We need to apply that particular provision to understand whether there is a mandatory requirement or not. Come on, guys, quickly. Okay. So before I discuss the answer for this particular question, okay, before I discuss the answer for this particular question, let's move to another question. Okay. Now, in connection to the same, but let's understand that particular question also, and then we can answer both together. So the second question is, in the above example, if ABC Private Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of ABC Limited, an NSE listed entity, then would your answer differ? So if this ABC Private Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of ABC Limited, a NSE listed entity, then would your answer differ or not? Would your answer remain same or differ? Come on, guys. You need to think again. Direct application of provision, nothing, no difference here. Like you need to apply the direct provision and you will get the answer. So if this is the subsidiary of listed entity, would your answer differ? Okay, good, Janvi. Very good. Come on, guys, quickly. Only one answer I have received. Would your answer differ if this was a wholly owned subsidiary of a listed entity? Come on, guys, quickly. So you need to just directly apply the provision, and accordingly, we need to see whether it is, falling under that category or not. Okay. So let's see the applicable provision, and based on that, we'll discuss the answer. Fine. Now, when I talk about requirements of Companies Act with respect to applicability of internal audit, we are talking about section 138 of Companies Act. Okay. Section 138 of Companies Act, okay, requires us such class of companies, or the companies which are prescribed to appoint an internal auditor. Requires such class of company to appoint internal auditor. Okay. As may be decided by a board to conduct internal audit functions and activities of the company. So that is a one thing. Now, when I talk about such class of companies, then that is prescribed in Rule 13. Now, what Rule 13 says? Rule 13 of Companies Accounts Rule says that there are two classes of companies for which this requirement has been given. One is the public limited companies, like public and private. So when I talk about public limited companies or listed entities, so all listed entities are covered by default. For all unlisted entities, subject to conditions. And for all private limited companies, again subject to conditions. Now, when I talk about all unlisted entities and subject to conditions, those conditions are based on certain criteria, that is paid up share capital, turnover, outstanding loans, and outstanding deposit. So if your paid up share capital is, more than 50 CR, if your turnover is more than rupees 200 CR, okay, if your outstanding loans are more than your 100 CR, and if outstanding deposits more than 25 CR, in that case, you will fall under the category of unlisted entities who are mandatorily required to appoint internal auditor. Now, when I talk about paid up share capital and turnover, that is for the preceding financial year. But when I talk about outstanding loan and outstanding deposit, that is at any point during preceding financial year. So we are by default checking for the preceding financial year. It can be either at any point or at the end. Okay. So if any company crosses this particular limit, okay, in previous year or preceding financial year, then in the current financial year, they are required to comply with the provisions of section 138. So it gets triggered after 1 year, basically. Now this is or, not and. These all conditions are based on or, means either paid up share capital, either turnover, either outstanding loan, either deposits. It's not like everything should be there. Any one can be there. Now the same conditions are also there, like in the same way conditions are also there for private limited. But for private limited, we have only two conditions. One, turnover of 200 crores or more during preceding financial year, and outstanding loans and borrowings from public and financial institutions exceeding 100 crores at any point during preceding financial year. So same and this same. Now rest turnover, sorry, my mistake, not paid up share capital, it's a turnover point. Same. Now the requirement of turnover and outstanding deposits is not applicable in case of private limited, okay. So only two conditions, turnover and outstanding loan. For unlisted public limited companies, four conditions. Okay. So you have total four conditions for unlisted public companies, but you have two conditions only for private limited company, that is turnover and outstanding loan. Okay. Now, based on these scenario, if we go back to our question, if we see this is a private limited company. Private limited company, I am not required to see the requirement of any paid up share capital because it's not applicable for the purpose of appointment of internal auditor. I'm required to see about the loans and your turnover. So loans as on 31st March 2023 are 25 and 40 CR, but I am supposed to see for previous year, which is not given. I'll assume it is less than this. Hence, okay, the requirement was for the loans is 100 CR. Again, still less than 100 CR. So I'll assume that, okay, 100 CR limit is not met. Fine. Turnover, I am being given like it is less than 200 CR. Okay. It is less than 200 CR. And again, I'll say, okay, if it is less than 200 CR, then there is no condition which is, which requires this company to appoint mandatorily an internal auditor. So based on this given information, the company is not required to appoint. Mandatorily. Voluntarily they can comply, but mandatorily not required to appoint. However, now coming to the second part of this question, which was with respect to if in the above example, if this company was wholly owned subsidiary of a listed entity, okay, then would your answer be differ? Would your answer differ? Now, there are two things you need to understand. Like, when I talk about listed entity, yes, a listed entity, ABC Limited is required to appoint, but there is no, again, a requirement for the wholly owned subsidiary. So there is no requirement given in the section that, okay, once a company is a wholly owned subsidiary or a subsidiary of a listed entity, they are required to appoint, mandatory and internal auditor. So it's not compulsory for ABC Private Limited. Answer will not change. But not change. But if I talk about practically, ABC Limited is a listed entity. So by default, they are required to have an internal auditor. If ABC Limited is having internal auditor, then for sure he will look into his subsidiaries also and the control environment or everything, what is the purview of whatever is in the purview of internal auditor, he will look into that for his wholly owned subsidiary also. So you can say ABC Private Limited is not required to appoint separately, but there will be some auditors, internal auditors, who will be looking into the operations of ABC Private Limited. For the purpose of answer, ABC Private Limited is not required to mandatorily appoint the internal audit. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. Sumit, ABC is still a private limited company. So when even though they are the wholly owned subsidiary of ABC Limited, we will not check the conditions of public limited for them. It will be the conditions of private limited only. Any doubt, guys? Okay. Now, if there is no doubt, then I have one question that I want to discuss. Let's say, for example, okay, in the same scenario that we were discussing, ABC Private Limited, let's say ABC Private Limited was required to appoint internal auditor, let's say, assuming they crossed the turnover is or outstanding loan requirement. They appointed DEF Consulting Private Limited as an internal auditor. Okay. And none of team members of this company were CA. Okay. So there was no CA in this company, and ABC Private Limited appointed DEF Consulting Private Limited as an internal auditor. So they appointed PEF Private Limited as their internal auditor. So what do you think? Is it permissible as per the provisions of Companies Act? Is this permissible within the is this within the provisions of Companies Act? Come on, guys. What do you think? Is this permissible? So I am appointing a corporate for internal audit function, and that corporate is not an employee of the company. So this is a corporate, basically corporate form. This is a company. I am a company, private limited company is appointing another private limited company for internal audit. Good, Janvi. Very good. And none of the team members of this particular company were chartered accountants or are chartered accountants. So there is no CA present. What do you think? Come on, guys. Pretty easy. Again, it's a direct application of the provision. Nothing different here. Absolutely correct, Namrata. Very good. Okay. So again, if we go back to section 138 in the current case, okay, what section 138 says that? Section 138 says that who shall be like such class of companies as may be prescribed shall appoint an internal auditor who shall be, okay, who shall be either a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or such other professional as may be prescribed by the board to conduct. Okay, as may be prescribed by board to conduct the internal audit or the functions and activities of internal audit. So either it can be chartered accountant, cost accountant, or other professional. Okay, so these are the three which are basically prescribed within the section. Let's just mention it. I'll increase the size. Okay. So basically, either it can be a chartered accountant, cost accountant, or other professional. Such other professional. Now, if this is a detail, this is a basically wordings of section 138 where it is mentioned that it can be a body corporate. We are talking about three: chartered accountant, cost accountant, such as other professions, where it is there for the body corporate. So that particular detail is within Rule 13, which says that that the following class of companies are required to appoint uh, the internal auditor, and that too it can be based on body corporate, firm, or individual partnership firm or body corporate. So if you read the provisions of Rule 13, it says that it allows that which can be either a individual, partnership firm, or body corporate. Okay. So Rule 13 allows internal auditor to be a partnership firm or a body corporate. Individual, partnership firm, or body corporate. That is something allowed by the Rule 13. So it is fine if none of the team members are chartered accountant, or it is a private limited company who is being appointed as an internal auditor. So both is allowed as per the Act, Section 130, and then the rules there too. Okay. Any doubt? Any doubt till now, guys? Now there is one question. If I want to check the requirement of appointing as an internal auditor for financial year 22-23, I need to refer to the turnovers and I need to refer to the paid up share capital of preceding financial year, that is 21-22. Then based on 21-22, I will see whether the requirement of appointment of internal auditor is there for 22-23 or not. So whether it's a loan or it's a turnover, it is required to be checked for the preceding financial year. Clear? I hope, Sumit, I have answered your doubt. Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? No? Okay. If no doubt, then let's proceed to the next question. This is a question, kind of a case study, small case study sort of, and based on that we will see. Mr. Sham was appointed as Chief Internal Audit Officer of Manpreet Autotech Limited, a listed entity, to him or to Managing Director. As per the CEO, there should be unity of command within the organization and there should be satisfactory balance between the authority and responsibility of important executive. This is something, CEO of the company explained to Mr. Sham regarding the goal of company with respect to organization structure. While discharging the duties of internal audit officer, Mr. Sham decided to perform a review of organization structure, wherein he identified that the chief sales officer, chief product development officer, and marketing officer were reporting to CFO instead of CEO or managing director. When Mr. Sham inquired about the reason for the same, CFO explained to him that this is done to enable him in quick decision making and to allow him to conduct appropriate reviews and monitorings over these officers. Mr. Sham was satisfied with the answer and accordingly he reported no observation with respect to the review of organization structure. Now let us see certain questions. Question number 1 that we have in front of us. Mr. Sham has approached to you to understand the list of objectives of the internal audit. Kindly guide Mr. Sham. Now you need to guide Mr. Sham with respect to what are the objectives of internal audit function within the organization. Now in the start we saw that Mr. Sham is new. He was only involved in statutory audits, so he was not sure what should be the objectives of internal audit function in these changing times. So Mr. Sham has approached you to understand what could be the objectives of internal audit function. To list down certain objectives of internal audit function that you think are relevant and should be there in these times, like in the modern times or currently which are applicable. Come on, guys. Certain objectives that are, you think required for the internal audit function. Good, Sumit. Very good. Correct, Janvi. Very good. Come on, guys. What could be the objectives of the internal audit function? Come on, guys. Good, Namrata. Very good. Okay. So now all of you have answered, okay, certain points. All of you have identified certain points. Now, I just want to understand, like, few things from your answers only. So, most of you have answered risk assessment or risk management as a part of objective. Can anyone just explain what internal audit is required to do when we are talking about risk management? Why this is listed in the objectives? Why risk management? And what is there in the risk management? What do we mean by risk management over here? Come on, guys. What do we mean by risk management over here? Okay, Janvi. Okay, Smith. Do you think some anywhere in my internal audit I use the concept of risk management? Come on, guys. When I talk about risk management, why risk management? What is the objective of risk management? Okay, I can give you certain examples where I can say, okay, risk management is not the responsibility of internal auditor. Okay, let me tell you some detailed background and on this, and then we can further discuss. Now, if you see section 134.4, okay, reports on directors report of board of directors. In there's a clause at end. Clause N talks about that a statement indicating the development and implementation of risk management policy for the company, including identification and element of risk as if any, which in the opinion of the board may threaten the existence of the company, is implemented or not. So risk management policy by BOD. That is a requirement under section 134.3 clause N, where board of directors are required to include a statement indicating development and implementation on risk management policy. So somewhere it gives an impression, okay, that is the responsibility of board of directors. Fine, no issues. Number 2, section 177.4. Again, when I talk about section 177, it's a section related to internal audit committee. Okay. Section 177, subsection 4, clause 7. Wherein it is the duty of internal audit committee to evaluate IFC, internal financial controls, and risk management systems. So audit committee to evaluate risk management system. Okay, fine. Then I have another requirement again, that is regulation, SEBI regulations, LODR regulations. If you remember in regulation 17.9, okay, there is requirement on the company's board of directors to lay down procedures to inform members, to lay down the procedures to inform members of other board of other members of board of directors about risk assessment and minimization process. Okay, so SEBI LODR regulation also states that the board of directors shall be responsible for framing, implementing, and monitoring risk management plan. So again, that implements board of directors responsible for risk management plan. Okay, even you remember there is a risk management committee that we discussed as per regulation 21, LODR regulation 21. Certain type of companies are required to constitute a risk management committee. So these are certain regulations either in Companies Act or SEBI LODR, which provide some detail about the requirement of risk assessment, but nowhere it is mentioned that it should be the responsibility of internal auditor. Nowhere it is mentioned that it should be the responsibility of internal auditor. Then why we are saying it should be an objective for the internal auditor? If that is the case, then why it should be objective for internal audit function? Why I want to have this as an objective of internal audit function when I don't have any requirement in any law or regulation on the internal audit function to do this? Why do you think? Sorry. Why do you think risk management is requirement or should be an objective for the internal audit function? Although I have certain regulations which specifically says that it is either the responsibility of board of directors, it is the responsibility of audit committee, it is the responsibility of risk management committee, then why internal audit? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Very important point. Trust me. This will clear your concept about the internal audit function. Okay, Janvi, good. Okay, Namrata, but how risk management becomes so important that it is required to be included in the objective of the internal audit function? I understand the internal audits audit is required to continuously check in day-to-day operations, but why risk management? Why it is so important for internal audit? Okay. So when I talk about risk management, basically, and why it is important and objective for the internal audit, the answer somewhere lies to risk-based internal audits. So I'm giving you a kind of a hint. Risk-based internal audits. A very big hint, you can say. Now, based on this, you can answer why it should be an objective for internal audit. So when I talk about risk-based internal audit, what is that? What is risk-based internal audits or risk-based audits? If I say risk-based audit, then what is risk-based audit basically? What it covers and why it is important. So first of all, what is risk-based audits? Come on, guys. What is risk-based internal audit? Come on, guys. I think this is pretty easy. What is risk-based internal audit? I don't need a definition. You can explain in your own words. That is perfectly fine. And that is something, when I say risk-based internal audit, this particular same concept is also applicable for statutory audit, risk-based audits. No? Under risk-based internal audit, an internal auditor is required to perform risk assessment exercise, wherein he identifies the risk areas and issues so that detailed audit procedures can be prioritized to target or to target those areas where there is a high risk or there are issues. Okay, while devoting less time to the low risk areas. That is something we do in audit. Risk assessment procedure. We understand where is a high risk. We perform more audit procedures in that particular area compared to the areas where there is either low risk or no risk. Okay. So an audit procedure need not to cover the whole process, but it can be limited to the controls or the processes where there is a high risk, or there is something, requirement to perform some procedures. If there is no risk, no issue in a particular area, then there is no requirement to cover that area in that much detail compared to the area where there is a higher risk. Okay. So if that is a scenario where I consider the risk while designing my audit procedure, that is a risk-based audit. And when such audits, internal audits, are done based on the risk, that is a risk-based internal audits, okay, by performing risk assessment. So if I have to perform risk assessment, if I have to perform risk-based internal audit, I need to perform risk assessment and risk management. Then only I can easily, perform my risk-based internal audits. Number two, when I talk about these provisions, yes, risk management is the prime responsibility of board of directors. The overall responsibility lies with the board of directors or audit committee or risk management committee. Agreed. But internal audit function is also working for these committees, either audit committee, risk management committee, board of directors. They are the one who have appointed internal audit function, and that's why it becomes a responsibility of internal audit function also to look for the overall risk management. So overall responsibility lies with the board of directors, but internal audit function is part of company. And by default from BOD, it passes to the IA function. Okay. So basically it comes into the scope of internal audit as board of directors and audit committee have appointed internal audit function for that. So that's why it is very important for internal audit to have the objective of risk management. I hope I'm clear. Any doubt with respect to the risk management, risk-based internal audits? Okay. Now let us see the answer for this particular question. If you see SA 600, SA 610 using the work of internal auditors, over there, basically there are the objectives, scope and objectives of internal audit function listed. Okay, in SA 610. So we already have seen essays. What are these functions basically? Okay, usually functions, usually the objectives of internal audit functions depends upon the size and structure of the entity and the requirement of the management, or where applicable with those charged with governance like audit committee or risk management committee. These activity of internal audit function may include one or more following, which is monitoring of internal control, wherein the internal audit function is required or is appointed to look for the internal controls, how internal controls are there, how they are set up, whether they are appropriately being followed or not, whether it's an effective internal control environment present within the organization or not. So for reviewing, monitoring, okay, recommending any changes, recommending any improvements that is required in the internal control environment. So that is something, the first objective or the scope of internal audit function, to look for the internal control environment, monitoring of internal controls, examination of financial operations or information. Okay. So it should be an objective of the internal audit to look for the, financial and operational information. Today, internal audit function is not only restricted to just control environment, but it is to also financial and operational information, and we will see in some time about the operational audits and other type of audits. So internal audit function may be assigned to review or identify, or to suggest something on the financial and operational side of the company. Again, reviewing operating activities, which may include non-financial activities, kind of efficiency, input-output ratios, HR things, other non-financial areas. So there could be certain areas which are non-financial but key to the company. Those areas or reviewing of those operational activities can also be, should also be part of the internal audit function. Review of compliance with laws and regulations, self-explanatory, no required. Okay. Risk management, just now I provided you the detail behind the risk management. Governance. Okay. Governance, when I talk about the governance, so basically it is one of the important, or should be one of the important objective of the internal audit. Okay. Now, governance is kind of, defined as a set of relationship between company and various stakeholders. And basically you can say in governance ensures that, everything is aligned to the best interests of the organization. Okay, like we talk about corporate governance, good governance. So governance framework refers to the whole structure, system and processes that are put in place to organize various activities which are being carried within the organization for the, the benefit of the organization. So internal audit function is required to assess the governance process, whether such ethics, values, okay, whether such strategy, culture is there within the organization which promotes, that the activity which are carried across the organization are for the benefit of the organization, or are, in the direction of mission and vision of the organization. So that is something, with respect to the governance. So these are certain objectives and the scope of internal audit function that should be there in modern times. Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. Jamie, reason one with respect to risk management or any other area? Hedging is a, kind of managing the financial risk. And when I talk about the risk management, it's more wider term. It's not only I'm talking about forex risk, foreign exchange risk, but multiple type of risk. So hedging represents, responding to foreign currency risk. But when I talk about risk management, it can be multiple type: market, liquidity, within the organization, outside the organization, internal factors, outside external factors, multiple. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? No? Okay. If no doubts, okay, so there is one doubt. What is the difference between operating information and activities? So when I talk about operating information, okay, it is the information regarding the operations of the company. For example, it could be, information regarding how much quantity of the, production has been there. What is the production quantity? What was the raw material, required? What was used compared to the budgets? Okay, what was the man hours invested compared to the budgets? What was the budgeted cash flow that was expected and what they have achieved? So operational information within for the company. Okay. Now, when I talk about operational activities is activities which generate that particular information. Now, that activities could be non-financial activities. For example, production, okay, or hiring. Let's say, for example, we have less man hours booked on a particular job. I want to investigate why. I identified I have a less, employees or the, required skills, labor for that particular activity. So reviewing operational activities is something, like, okay, why there was less skilled labor within the company. I will review HR and hiring and everything process just to understand why there was a lack of skilled labor. So reviewing operating activities is something, which is out of which you get the operating information. I hope I have answered your doubt, Namrata. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? No? Okay. Then let's proceed forward to the next question. While studying the report of Mr. Sham, okay, on review of organizational structure, CEO commented that Mr. Sham has not identified the undue dominance of one officer over another. On this, Mr. Sham responded that it is not within the purview of internal audit to review whether there is undue influence or not. Kindly guide CEO and Mr. Sham with respect to certain areas that internal audit should review while reviewing the organizational structure. Now, where this is coming from, the same case study, mini case study we saw, okay, wherein this was the thing that Mr. Sham decided to perform a review of organization structure where he identified that the chief sales officer, product development officer, and marketing officers were reporting to CFO. When Mr. Sham inquired about the reason for the same, CFO explained that this is done to enable him in quick decision making and to allow him to conduct appropriate reviews and monitoring over these officers. Now, CEO of the company is saying that Mr. Sham, while reviewing, the report of organization structure, CEO commented that Mr. Sham has not identified undue dominance of one officer over another. However, Mr. Sham is saying that it is not within the purview of internal audit. So you tell me whether it is in the purview of internal audit to identify undue influence of one office over another when they are reviewing the organization structure. So if there is a review of organization structure, is this within the purview of the internal audit to review whether there is an undue dominance of one officer over another? Come on, guys. Whether this is within the purview of internal audit, it should not be included in the purview of internal audit. Good, Janvi. Good, Sumit. Also, you need to provide certain more areas that the internal audit should review. Internal auditor should review while reviewing the organizational structure. So certain more areas that IA should review when they are reviewing the organizational structure. Come on, guys. Certain areas that internal audit should review while reviewing the organizational structure. What areas are there that the internal audit function should consider when they are performing or conducting an appraisal of the organizational structure? Good, Janvi. Good, Sumit. Basically, what internal audit should look into. Like, you need to think from the point of view of internal audit. Okay, I am the internal auditor. Now I am reviewing the organizational structure. What should I review? Okay, good, Sumit. Come on, guys. What should be I reviewing when I'm performing a review of the organizational structure? Come on, guys, quickly. Okay, good, Sumit. But Namrata, what should be the activities that internal auditors should do when they are reviewing the organizational structure? And when I talk about activities, means the areas. Okay, I want to review the organizational structure, but how and what should I do when I'm reviewing the organizational structure? How should I review? What things I should review rather? So I need to understand, okay, what are the things that internal auditor is required to perform when they are reviewing the organizational structure. Come on, guys, come on. So you need to think from that point of view when I'm talking about reviewing the organizational structure. Okay, Sumit. Management trainings, I don't think so, should be part of my organizational structure review, because it is something with respect to the training, but training should not be part of review of organizational structure. So I'm reviewing the structure of the organization, like whether it is appropriate or not, but to review that with what thing I should compare with, what I thing I should compare it, or what activities I should perform it, or what things I should look for when I'm reviewing an organizational structure. Again, reviewing MIS is again, will not be part of reviewing the organizational structure. Uh, when I talk about managerial, okay, so when I talk about managerial development, basically it is, you can say, the roles and responsibilities which is being allocated, how they are being developed. Training is something you can say is, can be one of the part of managerial development process. Another part could be the succession planning. Let's say, for example, if I know, okay, this particular important officer, okay, chief officer is going to retire, then who is going to take the next place? Okay, so something like that. So managerial development in enterprise, kind of looking for the responsibilities also, and for with respect to succession planning, a lot of things are involved in managerial development, and one can be then, if you then can be management trainings can be included. But standalone management trainings is, I think it should not be part of the review of organizational structure. Okay, so let us see the answer. Basically, when I talk about review of organizational structure, first of all, the first question comes is, when you want to review the organizational structure, what is the goal of company? What company wants from the organizational structure? That is very important. And that is also given in the question itself. So when CEO explained of the CEO of the company explained to Mr. Sham that the goal of company is to have simple economical organizational structure wherein each officer should report independently either to him or to managing director. There should be unity of command within the organization, and there should be satisfactory balance between the authority and responsibility of the executives. So there is a goal which is already given in the question. Now you need to, when I'm reviewing the organizational structure, I need to see first of all, okay, that the internal auditor should conduct, when he is conducting an appraisal of organization structure, he needs to understand whether the same is within in harmony with the objectives of the enterprise. So I need to see what is the goal of enterprise and whether my organizational structure is in harmony with the objectives of the enterprise or not, and whether the assignment of the responsibilities are in consonance with the goal of the organizational structure or not. And for that purpose, what I need to do, he needs to review the manner in which the activities of the enterprise are grouped for managerial control. Okay, like he needs to review what is the responsibility and authority given to each of the officer, how they are grouped, whether they are grouped segment wise, whether they are grouped region wise, okay, whether they are grouped business wise. A company, a corporate can have a multiple line of business, okay, or segments, I could say. So whether the authorities and the responsibilities are grouped entity that segment wise. Let's say, for example, steel manufacturing, metal manufacturing is there. production companies there which produce the iron, steel rods, or something like that. Okay. Now, for each and every division, let's say for example, they have a separate CFO, CEO, or procurement officers, procurement team, and everything. Or they can have department wise for all the segments, like procurement department for all the segments, financial department for all the segments, or they can have region wise. Okay, for APEC region, Asia Pacific region, they have a separate procurement department who looks for the only Asia Pacific, or for North America they have a separate, like multinational corporates can also have this way. So what is the grouping that has been done, whether that grouping is in alignment with the objective of the company or not. So looking for the grouping, looking for assignment of the responsibilities, authorities, and whether they are in harmony with the group pattern or grouping pattern or not. Second, the internal audit should examine the organization chart to find out whether the structure is simple, economical, that no function enjoys undue influence or dominance over other. Like for example, it should be like simple and economical means, okay, chief officers reporting to chief executive officer or managing director. It should not be complex that he is reporting to that, then he is reporting to that, and via some officers are reporting to some other officers, and then the report goes to the line goes to the CEO or managing director. It should be simple and economical. The more complex the structure will be, the more complex reporting and things will be within the organization. Internal auditors should also see the responsibility of managerial staff at the headquarters, and they do not overlap with the officers at the operating units. So you have a plant controller, you have an operating officer of the plant, or you could have a financial officer of a particular region, particular segment, particular entity. Now you have a global, you can have also global chief financial officer, CFO, global CFO. So they have a concept: global CFO, local CFO, CFO of entity, CFO of group. So if that is kind of environment or organizational structure set, then you need to see the responsibility of the headquarters does not overlap with the chief executive officers or chief officers at the operating unit. There should be a balance between the authority and the responsibility of the important executive. The internal auditor should examine the reasonableness of the span of control of each executive. Okay, the number of subordinates that an executive controls, and he should examine whether there is a unity of command, whether each person reports only to one supervisor. It should not be the case that okay, chief development officer, product development officer is reporting to chief sales officer, he is reporting to marketing officer, he is reporting to finance officer, he is reporting to CEO. Like there should be unity of the command, like one line to one. Okay, otherwise it creates a complications, and the structure then doesn't remain simple and economical. Where dual responsibility can be avoided, then at that particular point in time it should be avoided. Like if it is possible to avoid dual responsibility, then it should be opted. Like one department or one person should be given one responsibility. Okay, and finally he should evaluate the process of managerial development in the enterprise. When I talk about managerial development, it is not with respect to the trainings, it is a wider term. When I talk about managerial development, it includes, okay, how a management should be expanded. Like, okay, today I have a management at only, group of board of directors. But is it the management I require? Or managerial process of managerial development means whether I want to expand the management, like, include more people within the management, or let's say succession planning or training and developments. So managerial development is a wider term which will also contain a lot of activities. So I need to evaluate the process of managerial development within the organization. So these are the areas that internal auditors should look for when they are reviewing the organizational structure. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? Any doubt with respect to this question? Okay. No? Okay, great. If no further doubts, what I suggest is let's take a quick 10-minute break, and after the break, we'll gather back and continue the session. Okay, let's take a quick 10-minute break. Welcome back. Let's continue the discussions and the questions. Okay. Now, next question. While planning the internal audits, Mr. Sham was of the view that the internal auditors are not required to look for the red flags of fraud. Their role is to evaluate the control environment by performing the necessary design and operative effectiveness testing. Primary responsibility for the prevention and detection of fraud rests with the management and those charged with governance. And then it is the responsibility of the statutory auditor. You need to comment whether Mr. Sham is correct with his view that internal auditor's role is not to look for the red flags of fraud, or his role as an internal auditor is not to prevent and detect fraud. So, what do you think? View of Mr. Sham is correct or not? Do you think view of Mr. Sham is correct? What is the responsibility of internal auditor with respect to prevention and detection of fraud? Come on, guys. When we write the statutory audit report, at that point in time also we write some statements about the prevention and detection of fraud. What do you think? Is Mr. Sham correct? Is Mr. Sham correct with his understanding or not? Come on, guys. Is Mr. Sham correct with respect to, because see, when we write the audit report also, we write about something about, primary responsibility of prevention and detection of fraud. We write that, okay, whose responsibility it is. From that point of view, think whether it is a responsibility of the internal auditor or it's a responsibility of management to prevent and detect fraud. Good, Yedu Kondalu, very good. Good, Sumit. Good, Namrata. So think from the point of view of, okay, what is the responsibility of management and what is the responsibility of auditor? What is the responsibility of management and what is the responsibility of auditor here? Okay, let us see the answer for this particular question. The internal auditor should exercise due professional care and competence and diligence expected from him while carrying out the internal audit. Okay. Now, he is required to apply due professional care, competency, and diligence expected of him while carrying out the internal audit. Due professional care signifies that the internal auditor exercises due professional care in carrying out the work entrusted to him in terms of deciding on the aspects such as extent of work required to be achieved to the objective of the engagement. Okay, so when I say due professional care means he needs to exercise such care that it signifies that, okay, whatever he is deciding while deciding the planning for the audit, while deciding deciding to perform the execution of the audit, or while deciding each and every activity, he is exercising professional care, he is exercising professional judgment. Okay, he is applying materiality, he is assessing everything, he is assessing risk while performing all the activities. Okay, he is looking for the governance. Now, due professional care, however, neither implies nor guarantee infallibility, nor it does not require internal auditor to travel beyond the scope of his engagement. Okay. Moreover, okay, an internal auditor is required to use his knowledge, skill, okay, reasonably enable him to identify factors of fraud. And why? Because there are two things. One, the level of assurance, the nature of assurance that is given through internal audit. See, when I talk about audit, there is some kind of assurance that is flowing from that particular audit. Okay, there is kind of a assurance that is flowing from audit. Now, not all the audit assignment performed by internal audit are assurance engagement, but whenever an assignment of internal audit which is performed by the internal auditors, which gives certain level of assurance, that point in time, the objective of the audit is to provide, kind of assurance on the subject matter. And usually when I talk about assurance here in the case of internal audit, it is, expected to apply risk assessment, to, check for the control, to check for the governance process, cost benefit analysis. So all these are the areas for which the assurance, some kind of assurance is given. And when I talk about risk assessment or risk management, we already discussed in detail. Risk management means understanding and identifying where the risk lies, and that includes my fraud risk also. So internal audit should therefore use his knowledge and skills to reasonably enable him to identify the factors of fraud. However, internal auditor cannot be expected to possess the expertise of a person specialized with knowledge and skill in detecting and investigating the frauds, but still he should have such skills to enable him to identify the indicators of fraud so that he can perform the risk management process. It is necessary for him to perform the risk management, and while performing the risk management, it is necessary for him to understand what are the indicators of fraud. Okay. Although normally an internal auditor is not expected to possess the knowledge of a person that is expert, he should however possess a reasonable knowledge of factors that might increase the risk of opportunity of fraud in an entity, and exercise reasonable care and professional skepticism while carrying out internal audits. So to fulfill the responsibility that is given by the management. Now, same, the risk management was the responsibility of management. Same way, prevention and detection of the fraud is the responsibility of the management. But to fulfill the responsibility, like, management has appointed internal auditors. So hence, internal auditors should help management to fulfill the responsibility relating to the fraud prevention and detection. I cannot say it is not the area of internal audit to look into the red flags of fraud or indicators of fraud, but you can say that, okay, to help the management and to perform risk-based internal audit, it is necessary for internal auditor to identify the indicators of fraud. Okay, so if I say it is one of the areas that internal auditor needs to look into while planning and performing his risk-based audit. So Mr. Sham in the current case cannot say that it's not required by the internal auditor to look into the red flags of the fraud. That is incorrect. That will be incorrect mistake. Any doubt? Any doubt? It is a duty of the internal auditor to look into these matters. So therefore, an internal auditor is required to use his knowledge and skill reasonably enable him to identify indicators of fraud. Now, how many of you are aware about standards on internal auditing? So, standards on internal audit, which were issued by the institute, based on these standards, if you see, there is a standard SIA 11, which talks about consideration of fraud in internal audit. So there's a separate standard which talks about the role and responsibility of the internal auditor with respect to fraud. Then, okay, what should be the role of internal auditor? How he should consider a fraud in case of internal audit. There also, it is provided that the primary responsibility for prevention and detection of fraud is of management of the entity, but internal audit function is there to assist the management, and hence to fulfill the objective of the management, internal audit function is responsible for identifying red flags, identifying risk factors that indicates that there could be a chance of fraud. Okay, so if you see that particular standard also, that's also specifically lays down the requirement of consideration of fraud in an internal audit, that is SIA 11. Primary responsibility will always lie with the management, but internal audit function is an extended hand of management only. That's why it becomes responsibility of the internal audit function. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt with respect to this? Any doubt? Any doubts with respect to this question or any question till now that we have discussed? Remember, certain questions on the internal audit we also covered while we were reviewing or looking into SA 6110. when we discussed SA 600, at that particular point in time also there were certain questions that we discussed on the part of internal audit. Okay, just to give you a glimpse on those questions, just a minute. Remember, we also discussed some questions with respect to the internal audit function. I'll just show you. This one was the question where there was an internal audit team. Okay, none of them were chartered accountants, and they performed some testing. There was reliance required to be placed on the internal audit function by the external auditors. Remembering something from SS 600 series. So over there also we discussed something about when the external auditor can use the work of internal auditors. So that was also something we discussed on the internal audit at that particular point in time. Even this was one of the questions that 50 manual journal entries, no deviation was identified. Perform more testing. Remember? So I'll suggest go back to that particular lecture also, and in connection to with that, see these questions once again, so that it will enhance your understanding about the internal audit function, the roles and responsibility of internal audit. Now, in that particular lecture, with respect to that lecture, let's discuss one more question which was there. I'll just give you the brief background. Okay. So the question was that Sudha and Associate decided to use the work performed by the internal auditors over design and effectiveness, operating effectiveness of the manual journal. As per the information gathered, BLA tested 50 samples of manual journal entries and found no deviation in any attribute. Now, BLA was borderline advisories, coming from the previous question. They were the internal auditors of the company. So they tested 50 samples of manual journal entries and found no deviation in any attribute. Hence, Sudha and Associate decided not to perform further testing on manual journal entries, as internal auditor had already performed sufficient testing on them. Okay. So there was some testing on manual journal entries which was performed by one specific auditor, and then accordingly the statutory auditor decided to scope out that particular testing. Now, in connection to that only, there is one more question that I want to discuss. That is, after performing all the testing and gathering all the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, Sudha and Associate drafted their opinion and included the below paragraph in the other matter paragraph section of the audit report. The financial statement prepared by the company includes revenue recognition from long-term contracts amounting to this much CR for FY22 and this much CR for FY21-22, which were not audited by us and were audited by the company's internal auditors. We relied upon the work performed on revenue recognition for long-term contracts and conclusion reached by the company's internal auditors. Also, as per the explanation and information provided to us, no deviations were identified during the internal auditors testing on the internal financial controls over revenue recognition from long-term contracts. Accordingly, our opinion stands unmodified. So you need to comment on this particular paragraph that has been inserted for relying the work of internal auditor by the statutory auditor in financial statement. So it's a mix of both, with related to the work performed by internal audit and audit report. So what do you think on this particular paragraph? This is something which is part of audit report in other matter paragraph, where there has been described that the reliance has been placed by on the work of the internal audit. So you need to comment on this particular section that has been included in the audit report. Come on, guys. What do you think about this particular paragraph? What do you think about this particular paragraph? Quickly. So this is included in the audit report with respect to the work performed by the internal auditor. You need to provide details with respect to your answer. Like, whatever answer you are giving, why I need the reason for that. Come on, guys. What is the reason for your answer and what do you think about this particular paragraph? So this is a paragraph inserted by the statutory auditor in their audit report with respect to the work performed by internal auditor. Okay, good Sumit, very good. Come on, guys. What do you think about this particular paragraph? As per SA 610, I can rely upon the work performed by the internal auditor. Okay. SA 610 talks about using the work of internal auditor. Let's assume I can rely upon the work that is performed by the internal auditor. Can I include this paragraph? Very important. This again related to both internal audit and your external audit, statutory audit. Good, Janvi. Okay, let's go back to the essays. Essay 610. Okay, essay 610 specifically says that there are scenarios where we can rely upon the work of internal audit. That is there. However, however, still it will be the responsibility of the external auditor. Okay, by relying upon the work of, by using the work of internal auditor, external auditor has a sole responsibility. His responsibility is not reduced by by using the work of internal audit function or internal auditors, or where internal auditors are providing direct assistance. So still it will be responsibility of the external auditor, not of the internal auditor. Okay, so before relying upon the work of internal auditor, external auditor is required to evaluate whether he can rely upon the work of internal audit or not, and accordingly uh, the responsibility lies with external auditor only. If that is a scenario, then I cannot just enter have this particular paragraph in my audit report and say, okay, this is not my responsibility, I have relied upon the work of internal audit. No, external auditor can use the work of internal auditor. That's why it's the term using the work of internal audit, not relying upon. Okay. So when I'm using the work of internal audit, I need to perform some procedures to ensure that the work performed by the internal audit is relevant for me, is appropriate for me, and whatever they have performed can be used to support my conclusion and the opinion that I have formed. That's why entering such paragraph in my audit report will dilute my opinion that I have not performed, I have just relied upon the work of internal auditor, and that is incorrect totally. Hence, this paragraph should have not been part of audit report, and this paragraph reduces the responsibility of external auditor, which is totally incorrect. So, this is not correct. I hope I'm clear. Any doubt? Any doubt with respect to this? Okay. No further doubts. Then, from this, let's talk about the report of internal auditors. Okay. Let's say, for example, internal audit has been performed. Okay, internal auditors have performed their audit. Now they want to issue the internal audit report. What sections should be there at minimum in internal audit report? Okay, so what sections should be there at minimum when internal audit report is being prepared? So what are the things I need to list down in my reporting? Okay, which are the things I should list down at minimum? I'm not talking about all the areas, but minimum, or important key areas, key elements, you could say, section or key elements that can be part of my internal audit report. So what do you think can be those sections or key elements that is necessary and I need to involve while drafting the internal audit report? So what are those sections or key elements? Sumit, with respect to your query that can audit when like audit external auditor can rely but not include in the report. Basically, yes, external auditor can use rather than the rely. I'll say use the work of internal. He will be able to use the work of internal audit, but at his responsibility. It will be his responsibility. He needs to ensure before using the work of internal audit that it is appropriate for my purpose to use the work of internal audit. So that's why it will not reduce the responsibility of external auditor. And if it is not reducing the responsibility of external auditor, such paragraphs will misguide and mislead the readers of financial statement. I hope I have answered your doubt. Okay, coming back to this question, what sections or key elements should be there at minimum in the internal audit report? When I'm drafting the internal audit report, what are the sections or minimum things I should mention in my report? Good, Janvi. Good, Sumit. What else? What else? Which other sections or key elements do you think should be there in the internal audit report? Good, Mr. Irugunalu. Come on, guys. What other sections are important? You can compare vis-a-vis, your audit report, statutory audit report, and on the same line, you can also give some answers here. Come on, guys, quickly. What key elements I think it's necessary for the report when I'm drafting a report? Let's say tomorrow I give you an assignment. Okay, you have performed internal audit. Now you draft the report of the internal audit that you have performed. Okay, whatever identified things you have identified, whatever things you have noted down. Now I want you to report to the management those things. I just cannot like write paragraphs and paragraphs. There should be some structure. There should be some things uh, based on which I should draft my audit report. So what are those key elements? I have received few answers, but still I'm awaiting for more answers. Okay, let's discuss the answer for this particular question. Yes, Yedrukonalu, correct. So we can draw a reference from a particular standard on internal audit, that is SIA 370. Okay, SIA 370. Okay, which talks about basically reporting results. Okay, now SIA 370, or you can say, just I'm drawing a reference from there, but in usual also, the key elements that should be there in my audit report or internal audit report are objectives of internal audit, why I am doing this internal audit, what is the objective I want to achieve, scope of internal audit, okay, what areas I have considered in this particular audit, then approach, what approach I have adopted to conduct an internal audit. Okay, like I have done this particular testing, I have I use the approach of testing, inquiry, and whatever approach it should be. Then that if it is issued by a chartered accountant, then it should be compliant. It should be compliant with the SIA. So fact that it is conducted according to standards on internal auditing. Then you can say executive summary, of key findings or observations. Then summary of corrective actions. Okay, like what corrective actions are required, what corrective actions the internal audit function is recommending, okay, whether agreed by management or not, for each particular observation that is listed above, and the nature of assurance. If applicable. And the nature of assurance, if applicable, that can be derived from that particular report. So if there is any nature of assurance I am giving through the issue of this particular report, then that particular assurance I need to provide and document in that report. So this is, you can say, bare minimum key elements that I should keep in my internal audit report. Okay. Any doubt? Any doubt? Any doubt with respect to the key elements, or the minimum things or sections that should be part of my internal audit report? Okay, very good question. Whether this is required to be mentioned in this sequence. Now, what if I have executive summary first, then I have objective second, third approach, fourth summary of corrective actions, fifth, scope, then sixth, nature of assurance, and seventh, that it is conducted in accordance. So I do first, corrective actions, and then, I enter rest of the paragraph. Do you think it will be appropriate? Do you think if I keep this sequence, okay, will it be appropriate? Like I will first keep executive summary of key findings, then I will have objective, and let's say somewhere in between I have the scope of IA, and somewhere in between I have approach. What do you think? So generally, when I talk about SIA 370, it lays down the key elements. There is no sequence defined for the audit report. Trust me, if I keep this also, there is no issue on that. But the problem comes is when you need to, draft a report, you have to present the report in a way that is, it is, appears to be continuous. Okay, one by one. It should not, okay, I was reading something about, the summary, and sudden abruptly I reach on some different topic. So I'm talking somewhere about, that, okay, these are the observations, and suddenly I come, okay, this audit is conducted in accordance with SIA. So in half, I have covered the observation, and then suddenly next paragraph, something different. Till the time my paragraphs, my sections are in consonance with the, you can say the flow, are in, flow, then that is fine. You can have executive summary in the start also. I have seen audit reports where you have executive summary. Even I have seen internal audit report which are one pages. That doesn't mean they covering everything in a single page. That doesn't mean they are incorrect. So these are the key elements. That's why I said key elements that should be part of internal audit report. But how you want to incorporate, it's up to you. So there is no predefined sequence to this. I hope, Jani, I've answered your doubt. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? So let me show you a draft, you can say, or kind of internal audit report. Again, as I said, there is no predefined format. I have few key elements that are required to be mentioned in internal audit report. So the internal audit report, which I'm just showing you, is just for the reference purpose. Okay. So this is again procured, downloaded from the internet, publicly available data. There is nothing, specific confidential. See, if you see in this particular report, I'm just using for the reference purpose. Okay. So they have executive summary first. They have their findings listed, summary of findings, management response, corrective actions plan. Okay. So this is a thing. Then they have objective and scope. They have an approach, kind of, sample reviewed, exception noted, background information, organizational chart, and everything what they want to have. So all those details are then, listed afterwards. So that I was talking about, that there is no predefined format, but yes, these are the few key elements that you should incorporate in your internal audit. If I show you another one, again, I have taken this report from the publicly available data. There is no specific confidential or something like that. See, this is again, report of internal auditor. Like, then they have a objective and scope of work. They have discussed about the management of the office, like what background basically they are providing. They are providing about the integrated audit, some detail on the integrated audits. Again, if you see, they have issue listed within the within the paragraphs, like, country cooperation strategy was neither evaluated nor renewed, suboptimal readiness for the public health emergencies. So something like that, like they have listed the issues within the paragraph itself. Okay, country wise. So they have, clubbed into a section wise. Then analysis of finding, kind of, summary. They have a recommendations, basically. So again, based on the type of audit report, the content will be defined, and accordingly, the bare minimum should be there so that it can give you the clarity that is required. And they have some charts and figures explaining their, things, summary of investigation report and all those things. So this is how the internal audit report looks like. These are the some examples. Sequence is not important, but the way you write the flow, it should be there. Any doubt? Correct, Nidhi. Absolutely correct. Any doubt with respect to this? Okay. If no further doubts, then let's proceed to the next question. Okay. The next question is, Amar Steel Limited was involved in the manufacturing of steel and iron rods. The internal audit function of the company has identified the following issues present within the company. Penal interests were paid for delays payment to overseas vendors despite having enough cash flow. It was identified that the delayed payments were due to credit period decided by the company for issuing payments in foreign currency. There were delays in delivering the product to the customer. This was due to non-availability of the stock in the nearest warehouse. There is no policy or planning performed at the start of the year by the management to keep the stock in such warehouse where there is high demand. The normal wastage from the manufacturing process is 2% of the raw material. However, the actual wastage for the financial year ended 31st March 2022 was 4.5%. This was due to employee turnover and unavoidable factors linked with production. There was a delay of an average of 45 days in billing to customer from the date of dispatch. As per the SOP means the standard operating procedures. The billing should be done at the time of dispatch of goods. This was due to pending work or backlog on certain employees. Okay. For these issues, management want to conduct either management audit or operational audit. However, management is not sure with respect to which audit would be better and most fit suited for these matters. Kindly guide management regarding the selection of appropriate type of audit from management audit or operational audit with reasons. So for these issues, management want to conduct a type of audit, but they are confused whether they should go with the management audit or they should go with the operational audit. You are required to help management by providing the reason and the type of audit they should conduct, for each of these issues. So which issue should be covered in which audit? So you need to give the answer like, okay, this will be best fit, best suited, or best fit for this particular kind of audit, or if you want to investigate in this issue, then this audit should be conducted. Come on, guys. So what do you think? Which type of audit should be appropriate for these issues? You need to answer one by one, like, first A, this audit, this is the reason. B, this audit, this is the reason. C, this audit, this is the reason. Okay, Sumit, good. And the reasons? I want with reason why you are suggesting this particular type of audit. Come on, guys. Okay, Janvi. And what is the reason for that? Come on, guys, quickly. What is the reason? I want answer with reason. Janvi, what is the reason for your answer? Sumit, same for you. Why do you think this particular type of audit for these scenarios? And what is the reason for that? Come on, guys, quickly. Sumit, you need to, give the answer for a specific observation. Let's say, for example, observation A. You are suggesting X order. Why X order? What is the reason behind X order? Okay, you do wanna do good. Okay, let's see the answer. Now, first of all, we need to understand the answer for this question. We need to understand what is the difference between both of the audits. So what is the difference between both of the audits? So when I talk about management audit, it is with respect to the managerial decision making. It is with respect to targeting the plan, policies, and procedures. It's the audit for the management decision making. So whatever decision making is done by the management, if I want to audit that whether the decision making of management is correct or not, I'll go for management audit. But when I want to go for the day-to-day operations, whether operations are being conducted as per the defined plan, defined policy, SOP, defined procedures, then at that point in time it will be operational audit. In the operational audit, I check whether the operations are being carried as per the defined benchmark. I have a benchmark. This much production should be there. This much days of billing, within this much days the billing should be there. AR should not be more than this. This much should be, the maximum provision. A lot of things, KPIs and everything. So if that is a benchmark, then what is the actual and compared to the benchmark? That is something I will be, checking in my operational audit. But if I want to check if this benchmark is correct or not, if this particular policy that has been defined, if this particular KPI which has been defined is correct or not, then I'll go for management audit. Now, in the current case, if I see that okay, point number one, penal interest were paid due to delayed payment to overseas vendor. Now, there was no issue of cash flow, so enough cash flows were available. But the issue was with respect to the credit period decided by the company. Something related to the policy. So if there was a delay compared to the credit policy, let's say the policy was let's say you need to pay within 10 days, but somehow there was a delay and the payments were going after 50 days. Then compared to the benchmark, actual operations are happening not appropriately. But here the benchmark itself is something which is causing the delay. Hence, I will suggest here management audit. Number two, there were delays in delivering product to the customers. This was due to non-availability of the stock in the nearest warehouse. There is no policy or planning performed at the start of the year by management to keep the stock in the warehouses where there is a high demand. No policy or planning. Again, there is no benchmark to where the operations can be conducted effectively. Now, missing benchmark or inappropriate benchmark again are the reason for the management. Third, normal wastage from the manufacturing process was 2% of the raw material. However, there was an actual wastage of 4.4%, 4.5%. This was due to employee turnover and unavoidable factors linked with production. Here, there is a policy that it should be 2%, but actually it's 4.5%. So when I'm comparing the output of wastage compared to the SOP, that is higher. And this is due to employee turnover and unavoidable factors linked with production. This is nothing to do with the level decided for the 2%. And hence, to investigate the reason, I need to conduct operational audit. So again, there was a delay of an average of 45 days in billing to the customers from the date of dispatch. As per the SOP, billing should be done at the time of dispatch of goods. As per the SOP, the billing was supposed to be done at the time of dispatch of goods. However, this was not happening due to pending workload on certain employees. Now again comes to the operation. There is something which is not happening as per the defined SOP, plan, procedure, policy. If that is not happening, then to conduct the detailed investigation why there is a backlog on certain employees, why it is not happening on the time, I will go for operational audit rather than management audit. So this is the reason, and these are the audits that should be selected. Now for point number B, again, there is no policy or plan in place decided to keep the goods in the warehouse where there is a high change. Let's say, for example, at the start of the audit, there was a plan that, okay, you need to keep this much stock in this particular warehouse throughout the year, minimum level of stock. Okay. So if that was a minimum level of stock defined, and then if you are not keeping that minimum level of stock or predefined level of stock, then there I'll identify why they have not adhered to the plan or the policy that is required to be adhered. Or the plan says you need to keep this much stock, but that stock is missing. Then I'll go and check why, which is not as per the policy. Why this has not happened as per the policy. But here in the first case, the policy is even missed. There is no planning done. That's why that raises a question on the decision making of the management. So I'll go for management audit rather than the operational audit. I hope I'm clear. Any doubt with respect to this question? Any doubts? Okay. If no doubts, then let's proceed to the next question. So next question is, Mr. Sham, while performing the management audit, identified the policies on warehouse, inventory storage and shipping were weak and pending revision with the chief logistics officer of the company. Chief logistics officer was responsible for warehouse management and availability of the stock in the nearest warehouse to the delivery location. Mr. Sham conducted an inquiry and interview with CLO wherein he pointed out what chief logistics officer is not doing and what he should do with immediate effect. He intimated to chief logistics officer that he would be continuously reviewing the area by performing necessary testing till he felt that the issue has been remediated satisfactorily. Okay, so he told that he would be continuously reviewing. He pointed out CLO what is not doing and what he should do with immediate effect. Okay, he conducted an inquiry and interview with CLO. Mr. Sham reported these issues to board of directors without showing the report first to the chief logistics officer. As per Mr. Sham, these reports are confidential and are not required to be shown to the auditee. Okay, so Mr. Sham reported these issues to BOD. Chief logistics officer complained to the BOD with respect to the huge interference created by Mr. Sham in operations. So chief logistics officer then complained to the board of directors that there's a huge interference created by Mr. Sham in the operations. Also, chief logistics officer informed BOD regarding the prosecutional tone of Mr. Sham when asking questions and a great concern with the greater concern with parading the effects. When I talk about parading, means showing off the defects within the processes. So Mr. Sham was parading the defects. You being the expert member in the BOD, kindly guide Mr. Sham with respect to the possible solutions to overcome the problem which is faced by CLO. Now, this is something, the problem which is being faced by the chief logistics officer, which he has raised the complaint that there is a huge interference. And there is a prosecutorial tone being used by Mr. Sham, and he's showing great concerns, and showing off the defects without being looking to the essence and all these things. Now you need to guide Mr. Sham what Mr. Sham should do, possible uh, you know solutions for this particular problem. What could be the possible solutions for this particular problem? So what do you think could be the possible solutions for this particular problem? Like what different Mr. Sham should do, or the chief logistics officer is not appropriate in the current case because his observation has been identified. That's why he's raising the complaint, or there is something actually that Mr. Sham should change here with respect to the management audit. Come on, guys. What do you think could be the possible solutions, or do you think the chief logistics officer is not appropriate in the current case because his observations are being identified and now he's just complaining to BOD that Mr. Sham is not conducting the management audit appropriately? What Mr. Sham should do? Come on, guys. This is somewhere linked with the management audit and the observations and how management audit is done. Observations identified in the management audit and how management audit should be done. Usually, this is known as a classic case of resistance when a management audit is done. And what should be done in that case? So this is a classic case of resistance while which is being faced when a management audit is done. That you identify some observation, then that person starts complaining. Come on, guys. What do you think should be done in this case? As an expert member of the board of directors, do you think you should go to chief logistics officer and explain him that you are incorrect because it's Mr. Sham is identifying observations in your process and you are then complaining? Or you should go to Mr. Sham and explain him something different? What you should do? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. What do you think? Good, good, Janvi. Very good. Okay. So in the current case, as I told you, this is a classic case when, in the management audit, when you identify issues within the functioning of the management and they start complaining. So classic case of resistance. Now in these scenarios, what should be done? So as a management auditor, it's your response. As a management auditor, basically what you should do is you need to demonstrate, okay, this is an overall program mandated by the higher authority level to meet higher organizational needs for both protection and maximum constructive benefit. So you need to demonstrate, okay, this is for your benefit that we are conducting this exercise, and this is something will benefit you in the long run. Then you need to provide them, like maximum service in a feasible way that okay, this is something for your benefit. This is service provided to you, okay, at your request. Then you need to conduct your operations, your audit in such a way that it should, create minimum interference in the operations. If you conduct audit in a way which creates a huge interference in the operations, obviously operations will get hampered. There will be, impact on the day-to-day activities of the company. There could be chances that there could be, financial loss because of the interference. That's why conduct the operations or audit in such a way that it's a minimum interference. Okay. It is said that you need to conduct an audit in such a way that the person which is being audited should not feel that he's being audited. Then you need to keep the responsible officers, the responsible department, well informed. What are the observations? You need to give them opportunity of review the findings and give them opportunity of being heard and provide their recommendation before you finally release the audit report. So keep informed the departments, give them opportunity to review the findings, take the recommendations and agree the recommendations before you finally publish the report. You need to create an atmosphere of trust and friendliness so that the audit reports are understood from that perspective rather than being taken as a, as a defect finding or as a, in a tone which is, negative. Rather than, it should be taken as a constructive feedback rather than taking as a, highlighting issues and observations. So audit should be conducted in a way that, it becomes an add-on for the management rather than, fact observation finding or defect finding exercise. So if you see in the question also, discussions were not conducted with the concerned department, that without showing the report first to CLO, the report was issued. Okay. The inquiries were conducted and, immediately it was pointed in the inquiry, it was pointed out that CLO is not doing this and what he should do with immediate effect. Then it was said that, he will continuously review the area by performing necessary testing. So these kind of things, create resistance, create an atmosphere where the management, becomes some more resistive to the change and to the management, and that should be avoided. Okay. So in the current case, as an expert member of the board of directors, you should advise Mr. Sham to conduct the audit in a way that it should provide the constructive feedback rather than being a negative and giving a tone which is, of prosecutorial nature. Okay. Any doubt with respect to this answer? Any doubt with respect to this question? Any doubt, guys? No doubts? Okay. Sure, Govindrajan, sure. So, guys, one more information. The sessions which are scheduled on 9th August, 11th August, and 16th August, like practical questions. In that particular sessions, what we will be doing is we will be discussing past papers, kind of questions in which were there in the past papers, suggested answers, RTP, MTP questions, mock test, other questions of all the topics. So it will be all the topics, and you can bring your doubts of any topic. Like, it's not restricted to a particular topic. We will be covering overall, kind of a, session of questions. And, we will be discussing how to answer the questions. What are the things you should, consider while answering the questions? What things should be avoided when you answer a question? So all those things with respect to that. So these three sections will be, very important, and I will be requiring your maximum participation, and we will be covering a lot of things in those sessions. Okay, so please be ready for those sessions with respect to your doubts or the questions, or the we will be covering all the topics. It will be not restricted to a one particular topic, but we will be covering all the topics. Okay, if no further doubts, then thank you guys. Thank you for participating in today's lecture. I'll be seeing you in the next lecture. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Ashok ji.